to have good friendships, you have to be able to be a good friend and receive good friendship back. It's this symbiotic relationship.
That's the overall takeaway of manifestation. It never ends up being about the thing or the friend or the relationship. It always ends up being about the lesson, and that's really the gift of it all.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I hope you're having a wonderful week. I am so thrilled to hear some of the wildest testimonials you guys are having come through from the Manifestation Challenge. We finished the challenge last week, but people are still catching up and finishing sections that maybe they haven't started before. And we even have some new people just starting fresh. So it's not too late to join. We are going to keep the Manifestation Challenge open until March, but I'm telling you, take advantage while it is open. This is our most effective manifestation challenge we have ever had, and the numbers are rolling in, and it's looking like almost every single person who has completed the challenge has manifested at least a mini or major manifestation. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If you see this through, if you go back to your why, which you created at the beginning of the challenge, and really remember, why are you showing up for yourself? Why this is important to you? Stick with the challenge, keep showing up. You have it until March, but really take advantage of it because this is going to be a fast track to connecting with your manifestations. So today's episode is all around how to have magnetic friendships. This is a topic we really haven't touched on a lot, but is a big question from the community, especially as you're up-leveling in this work. You're seeing what parts of yourself are authentic, what parts were from ego, what parts you're evolving past and moving into. And as you're manifesting, you manifest new things, dynamics, careers, people, relationships into your life. Where do your friends play a role in all of that? And one thing we explore that we haven't touched on before is taking inventory of your friendships. Now, we take inventory in the How to Manifest workshop and in the Boundaries workshop of the people closest to us. What are their roles? Do they all feel aligned? Where am I spending energy on things that no longer resonate? And I think it's so important, at least, once or twice a year while you're doing this work, to really take inventory of friendships. Which ones are serving me? Which ones do I need to put more time into? And also recognizing our patterning and our blueprint around what makes a good or bad friendship. So often as we look back at the history of what we learned, quote, friendship is, whether from our parents or peers, I'd be so curious to see if you saw that blueprint from childhood, how many of your adult friendships and relationships mirror that same sort of friendship dynamic, and taking inventory of, is that the way that you want to express your love and care for your friends? And is that how you want to connect with them? You can make new friends at any age. You can have a deeper friendship with friends at any age. And I think friends pop in and out of our life at different times. So this is a really good opportunity to touch on all of these things. Grace shares some personal examples. I share some personal examples, and we give you really good takeaway of how to navigate transitional periods, calling in new friends, exiting friendships with grace, and all the good stuff. So if you like the friendship chat and combo and want more on this, feel free to DM us, message us, let us know how you like this episode. So curious, especially since it's been such a hot topic in the community. And I hope you guys enjoy.
And now a word from our partners.
So you know how much we love the Seed Symbiotic, the pre and probiotic combo here at To Be Magnetic. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the science in probiotics. So a lot of times you hear kombucha, kimchi, fermented foods. If you're eating that, then you're getting enough probiotic. But the truth is you really need a regular quality probiotic in order to have the most diverse, good gut bacteria to help balance your stomach microbiome. And what I really love about it is I'm someone who has struggled with gut issues and digestive issues and stress issues pretty much my whole life. And so having a high quality probiotic is a non-negotiable. I've taken 1,000,001 different kinds of probiotics on the market, and none of them really pack the punch and seem to be doing an impact that kept me consistent until Seed. Because Seed created their VitaCap, which is a capsule that their pre and probiotic live in, it was scientifically engineered to survive stomach acid, bile, salts, enzyme to get 100% of everything that's in the capsule to the right part of your digestive system and populate with good bacteria. It has been so helpful for me, and I highly recommend it to anyone who is looking to support their GI function, skin health, heart health, gut, immune, gut barrier integrity, or anyone that just really has digestive issues. And so exciting, we've been partnering with Seed for so long that they've increased the discount for you guys. Use the code TBM20 to receive 20% off your first month of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. I am so excited for you guys to try this out. It's been a game changer in my gut health, and I know it will be for yours as well. You can check the link in the show note or go to seed.com/TBM. As you guys know, we are huge fans of Beekeepers Natural over here at To Be Magnetic. They are an all organic, natural bee products company that really helps support our brain, gut, health, immune, etc. One product I've been leaning on a ton is their Royal Jelly Brain Fuel. So oftentimes when I'm in states of intense stress, my brain is so active during the night that I have a hard time falling into deep REM sleep. And whenever that happens, I know I'm going to wake up with brain fog. And one of the best, cleanest ways I've found to clear brain fog is with this Royal Jelly Brain Fuel. It is a proprietary potent blend of royal jelly and adaptogens that really help cognitive function. They also have Bacopa monnieri in there, which is an adaptogenic herb that enhances brain function, supporting the brain's ability to learn and retain information. And they also have ginkgo biloba, which is another herb that boosts blood flow to the brain and helps with learning, focus, and memory. So all of these things together work as a powerhouse to support your brain in a way that doesn't give you jitters. You're not shaky, whereas like some other brain fuels will add that to you, especially if they have caffeine in them. This is just a very clean way to enhance your mental clarity and focus. And so what I'll do is when I wake up with that brain fog, there are little vials, there are 6 in a package. I'll take maybe a third to a half little sip of them and then have my, regular morning routine, breakfast food, etc. And within a half hour already, I notice an immediate difference. It's like a strong alertness, a feeling like the brain fog has completely subsided, and I'm able to power through the day with flow and confidence. It is completely clean. It is the best way to support your brain, especially on those days when you have a lot of stress or maybe you didn't get the rest that you needed, and really helps to reset you and completely change your day ahead. So if you want to try out the Royal Jelly Brain Fuel or any other Beekeepers Natural products, you can use the code TBM to get 25% off your first order. That's TBM for 25% off your first order. Or you can go to beekeepersnaturals.com and use the code TBM to get 25% off your first order.
All right, on to the episode.
Welcome, Grace.
Hi, so excited to be here today.
Okay, so one big theme that we have had come up for a long time is friendships, especially as you're up leveling, you're getting closer to your authenticity. We just completed the manifestation challenge. And in that, I think a lot of people are recognizing what fits and what doesn't fit in their life. And some friendships may go to the wayside or recognize that they're not aligned anymore. And so we wanted to have an episode where we're showing some manifestation tips all around how to have magnetic friendships. There's a rich tapestry to look at our friendships to see, wow, that really shows our level of self-worth, what we're willing to settle for, where we are connected to our authenticity that ties into the manifestation process. What are some things that you have felt or noticed about the theme of friendship over the years?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because when we were thinking about what type of episode would best serve the community right now, we realized we really hadn't talked about friendship before. And we talk about other types of dynamics all the time, like parent-kid dynamics, work relationships, romantic relationships a ton, but friendships isn't something we've super touched on, but it's really this place where everything shows up for you, whether it's your inner child wounding, like why you pick the friends you pick, how you feel in a friend group. There's so much to talk about in terms of like how to create a healthy friendship, especially as an adult, how to make friends as an adult, how to make friends if you're in a relationship, and then how to deal with friend breakups or friendships that are no longer serving you. And how do you think about that? Like, you don't want to be mean. You don't want to throw someone out of your life because you're up leveling and they're not. But how do you sort of graciously make way for, a new chapter in your life where you have more aligned, healthy, giving friendship dynamics?
Yeah. And I think, we focus on romantic relationships and family relationships because I think those hit us the hardest. They're the ones that we're most connected to. Our romantic relationships often become family if it goes in that direction. And so that's where a lot of the initial blueprint is. But I was even talking to my therapist the other day, and she was saying how, especially for children that don't get emotional or certain needs met from their parents, the next place where they start to kind of take in information and understand this is how I need to behave, this is my role, this is who I should be, is from their friendships. And that's starting at, 4 or 5 years old. Like, it's a very young age. And you think of all of the dynamics and things that you've taken in and the role that you played amongst friends growing up and what messages you picked up and what behaviors you picked up. When you're really thinking about your authenticity, you have to peel back all of those layers to even know, who am I and what, even the version I was in grade school, middle school, high school, who was that person? What do they want? What are their dreams and desires? And how were friendships either elevating that, blocking that, et cetera? And I guarantee if you take a peek back, some patterns are still happening now, which is wild.
Totally. And we were talking about this yesterday in terms of what you picked up from your parents and their friendships and how that showed up in your friendships. Even starting to look at your patterning in friendships. Like, if I go back through my friendship timeline, I have like 3 very distinct ways that I've participated in friendships, whether it's like having one super best friend, being parts of friend groups for short periods of time, or being really close with someone that I actually really want to date, and then I'm their friend. I could pinpoint like 5 different scenarios within each of those patterns that I've continued to play out. And that's how I have friends. And maybe I want to evolve that into a more healthy representation of what friendship means, or maybe I want to stop, keeping these people I want to date in my life as friends, or figure out how to have a more long-term relationship with a best friend instead of a hot and heavy dynamic that burns out. So excited to get into all of that patterning, and it'll be interesting for all the listeners to take a step back and look at how that's showing up for them.
Yeah. So one direction I kind of want to point you guys in first is just, even in this moment, start to take inventory of, we do this in the challenge, in the manifestation challenge, and also in the How to Manifest workshop or Unblock Boundaries workshop. We have an inventory of this as well. But take inventory of the 5 to 10 people that you surround yourself most often with in terms of friendships. Who are the people that are immediately in your life connected with on a regular basis? And even just taking a peek at that, for me, someone who has had friends in many different cities, I lived in many different cities, in my head, I'm like, yeah, these are all my best friends. But then when I wrote down the 5 to 10 people I'm surrounded with the most and most in touch with, a lot of those friends I'm not in touch with on a regular basis. And it actually made me kind of open my eyes to, oh, wait, these relationships with people who are in different cities, I either need to be more proactive in connecting with them and making time to go fly out to see them or whatever, or I need to be able to fill those spots with people who I can interact with on a regular basis. Because I think, at least for the stage of my life right now, it was moving city to city, moving out of a sort of party phase or a phase where I wanted to even go out to bars or restaurants on the weekend into a more insular self-help wellness phase. And I'm like, okay, I shed all those old relationships, but now I see space in my life where those new relationships can come in.
And it's interesting to think about which friends are growing with you versus which friends are growing in a different direction. And neither is good or bad. It's just sort of people that are tracking with your experience and evolving in the same way at the same pace as you. And it's been interesting to connect with people over the past few years who aren't exactly real-time friends per se, but like it's someone from college or someone from high school. And I have a quick conversation with them and I'm like, oh my gosh, this friend is actually on the same path as me. I don't spend a lot of time talking to them or thinking about them, but we're sort of doing life in the same way. And I think if you comb through all of your relationships, it's interesting to identify who are the people that continue tracking with you that you don't necessarily consider a day-to-day friend, but actually they're kind of a support in your life, versus who are the people that are sucking up all your time and energy and you're chatting with them all day long and maybe they're not helping you grow, but you're just spending your time exerting effort on them, or those friendships where you feel pressured to continue to participate. So it's certainly very layered and a lot to take stock of there.
Let's kind of dive into some of the patterns that we've picked up in the blueprint. So once you have sort of your 5 to 10, and then you're thinking about, all right, through the lens of my authentic code and the direction I'm going, do all these people align, whether it's aligning your time with them, your friendship with them, but also how you both spend your time together. Maybe you have a friend and all they want to do is gossip and talk shit about everyone else. That doesn't align anymore. Is there an opportunity to shift what you do to beach walks where you guys can talk about inspiring things and things you're excited about for the future? So amongst those friendship, is there space to evolve? And then the really juicy stuff is you get to go into, I would first start with your parents. What were the friendships that your parents modeled to you? Because that's your first indicator of, oh, this is what I was taught was a friendship. So Grace, what did you witness around parent friendship modeling?
I had never thought about this before until we were thinking about this episode. And when my parents got married, they decided to buy a piece of land in the middle of nowhere and start a farm, which sounds like a really romantic idea. But if you grow up that way, you're like, get me to a city. I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere on this farm. But because of that, my parents didn't really have any friends. And my mom definitely didn't have any friends in that town. Like I knew of friends that she had from like growing up, like she'd mention a name here or there, but they weren't actually a part of my life. And then my mom had one best friend at a time who would like really almost become a part of the family, like a third parent. There was this woman in our life who was like, a fake aunt. She was there for all the holidays. She picked me up from dance class. She babysat when my parents were out of town. She was a best friend to my mom. And I would say the relationship was maybe a little bit more codependent than like a healthy friendship, right? Because she was operating as a part of our family. And that's not necessarily a friendship. That's sort of a different scope of work per se, right? Mm-hmm. So I saw relationships like that pan out a few times where it was one person who became like really close with my mom and then really became integrated in our lives in a way that was a lot more than a boundaried friendship where two people have their own lives and they get together to catch up or have a phone call or get together for parties or whatever. So that's kind of what I saw modeled on my mom's side. It was like hyper independence and then one super codependent friend that kind of came and went from our lives. And then my dad had literally no friends. Like he didn't have anyone come over ever. He owned a business. So, there were like the guys at work or people he knew through work. But I don't know, like one just friend that my dad had. And when I was thinking back on how that manifested in my life, it's interesting to see that, like, on the side of my mom's friendship pattern, I've been someone who's pretty religiously had one do or die best friend, for different stretches of my life. I had a childhood version, I had a high school version, I had a college version, and then I've had many different versions after that. But the relationships haven't really been long term. They've been like for a period of my life, and they've been all in and then they've ended. And it's something I've reflected a lot on recently and during my Saturn return. Like, why did these relationships end? What was my part in it? Is this something that I should circle back to and try and make amends with this person? Or was this truly just a lesson in my experience? But through the lens of my patterning, it's interesting to see how that mirrors my mom's relationships. And then just as I'm speaking now about my dad, yes, he had no friends, and his coworkers were really his only sense of friendship. And I've also realized, and I was going to say this earlier, like a lot of us are really close with our coworkers when we're working with them, and we talk to them all the time. We don't necessarily think of them as friends, but they're actually filling that space in our life where we're texting and tracking, and then we form a little personal relationship on top of the work. And I've also, had cycles of coworker friends that have come in and out of my life as they've had different jobs. So those are sort of the two dynamics that I saw directly mirror my parents.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I definitely with the coworker, like you're on my list of my 5 to 10 because I interact with you so often, So it's like, even thinking that when you're listing out those people, we might not be having sleepovers at each other's house or anything like that, unless it's a vacationing thing. But you have to really think, who do you actually spend that time around, and including those people on that list. And for a lot of people, it is coworkers, because people spend so much time at work, and recognizing, how do I have boundaries within these relationships?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so powerful, even just recognizing those dynamics and seeing, okay, what did I witness with both of my parents? What did they model to me? What did they show to me? And how is that still playing out now? Maybe that is authentic for you and works for you, but it's having that check-in point of what is true to me and what does my soul actually crave and want? And for me, when I looked at those dynamics too, my dad was very similar, had work friends. I think he had his best friend from high school who lived in a different state, but that was like his best friend still. And then other than that, he didn't really have a social life. It was whatever my mom chose to do. And then my mom was close with her brothers and their family. And then my friends' parents and some coworkers. But a lot of the friendship all revolves back into what's the family doing as a unit. My dad was there, I was there, like we were all together. My sister was there. It was never my mom having girl time. It was never vacation with the ladies. My dad didn't have guy trips. There was no emphasis on them having their independent lives with friends outside of the family. It was like, if you're in a family, you can have family friends, but then other than that, it's not happening. And what was interesting is after my mom got divorced, she really leaned on new friendships. She found new friends. She found a group of friends. They even had like a little nickname for each other. They would go on girl trips and many different friends, right? And she found avenues to find that support. And she was thriving with all of these new friends. Like that was her happy state, having these support groups in different angles. And so I think part of me saw, okay, you can have your girl group or your best friend group, but if you're in relation or if you're in family relationship, then you don't have those people. You don't lean on those people. You stay just within the family unit. And if I look at when I had a really strong group of girlfriends, completely independent from a relationship, they're at almost separate times. Like when I'm in a relationship, it's who's the relationship's friends. Like even this year, Daniel and I are calling in couple friends instead of individual friends for me, individual friends for him. We're calling in a couple friends. So it's kind of interesting. Why do I have to pair them, and why are they counterintuitive almost to each other at the same time?
Right. That's really interesting. And I think also beyond the dynamic patterns, there's also this underpinning of the energetics going on in those relationships. So when we talked about my example of like a hot and heavy best friend, I can see like really clear energetic themes within myself, I tend to really overgive in the friendship. I jump into, let's solve your problems. Let me help you start a business. Let me, clean your house, and let me jump into your life and become friends with your people. I dive into those friendships almost like they're romantic relationships, but they're not romantic. But it's like I'm so excited to be, a part of somebody's life that I treat it like it's my life. And then I usually get to a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't my life. I'm still autonomous outside of this friendship. And I think that usually happens to people in romantic relationships. But for me, it's happened a lot in friendship. So I love having a best friend. It's the best, but I'm learning how to have a healthier friendship where I have my life, they have their life, we help each other when it's appropriate, and we're both giving in the same capacity, but it's not one person running at the friendship and then the other person receiving. Instead, I'm focused on calling in friendships that are a bit more balanced, and it's not really the other person's fault. Like, no shame to any of my past friends at all. It's really me taking accountability for how I've shown up and for how I've burnt myself out, where like I get to a breaking point where I can't even show up for the friend anymore. And then I'm not able to be a good friend anymore because I overgave, and then I reached a breaking point and I need to sort of self-isolate. So it's been interesting to watch that specific energetic pattern underpin this best friend pattern. It's not even necessarily that having a best friend is like my authenticity or not. It's more, I think, illuminating this dynamic or block or tendency within myself that maybe doesn't even have to do with friendships, but is just something that I need to work on unblocking and becoming more autonomous in.
What do you think the need is beneath wanting to kind of run into someone's life and enmesh in and be like, we are all best friends. Like, let's go from 0 to 100, spend every day together, do everything together. What part of you was having like a need met through that behavior?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because at first I'm so excited and lit up. I don't even realize I'm doing it. I'm just like there for the ride, having so much fun. It's not like I'm consciously like, how do I get this friend to like me? Or how do I give more, whatever. And I think maybe taking a step back, I might have a tendency of thinking like, how do I make myself indispensable to someone? Whether that's at work, in friendships, in romantic relationships. My tendency would be, how do I make myself of service so that you can't get rid of me? And I even notice this in romantic relationships where I start engaging with someone. I realize they need help in an area that I have expertise in. Recently, it's like I turn into my romantic partner's life coach, right? And I'm like, eat this and do this and read this and blah, blah, blah. And then it's not a relationship anymore. It turns out me just counseling the person. And so it's an invitation for me to stay grounded in myself and meet my own needs, and then giving from there, because I have a tendency to self-abandon, to show everyone, look how indispensable I am. I can tap dance and I can feel your feelings for you, and I can tell you everything you need to do to make your life better. And of course, it's so unconscious, but I'm learning to watch when I have a tendency to like really want to give or really want to share. I'm like, is that appropriate? And then have I met this need for myself? Like, am I telling you to read some self-help book that I haven't even read? Or I'm saying, hey, maybe meditate and go to the gym, and I haven't even done that. So I think it's an invitation for me to integrate these things that I'm so excited to share or contribute into my own life first, and let the other person learn their own lessons, and know that whatever relationship it is can grow naturally with us both having our own lives and then coming together to say, look how awesome our lives are, rather than me being like, look how awesome I've made your life.
That's so interesting, the dynamic too of wanting to be indispensable to a friend, because I think that for me is a very similar root of why I give either 100 to the relationship or I give 100 to the group of friends, and why they seem to exist at different times. Like, obviously I still have groups of friends now, but if I look at how much effort I put into those friendships versus how much effort I put into my relationship, it's not even close. It's like so lopsided. And I think part of that is that giving piece. I only have so much bandwidth, so I'm going to give everything to the relationship that feels like the predominant thing in the moment and give to a fault. And in my relationship with Daniel, it has been a lot of, okay, I don't have to give that much. I can take boundaries back. I can take alone time. Like, these are all things I've had to learn in that relationship dynamic. And I think as I've started to heal it there, I'm witnessing maybe I do have space for other friendships. Maybe I can also have other independent friendships that I'm putting effort towards that I don't need to enmesh with and do every single thing together. I think that is a really common thing where if I look at a lot of my friendships or other people's friendships too, we have this desire, and I don't know if it's media or what, but like the one best friend narrative. And maybe it's because you have a lot of TV shows that romanticize the one best friendship. You're like, oh, I want to be inseparable like these two. But there is a narrative there. There's some part, at least for me, subconsciously, that's like, that's the right thing. That's the ideal thing. The two of you are thick as thieves no matter what. That narrative, I think, in a lot of ways is very limiting because you're putting all of your needs of friendship into one person. We need to be able to diversify what our needs are in different people.
And we also need to be able to meet those needs for ourselves and then show up in different friendships. And as you're speaking, I'm just thinking, when you have a best friend or even a partner, and then you start sharing everything with them. I'm sad, I'm hungry, I have to go to the bathroom, like this happened, that happened. We're actually sometimes missing an opportunity to like self-soothe or take time for ourselves, or, maybe complaining about that thing made us feel like we had an outlet for letting it go, but we should really be doing a DI or taking a bath or taking quiet time to like assimilate the new learning or whatever it is. I had a friendship / sort of romantic dynamic recently where it got really unhealthy because the person was going through a lot of self-development and would text me every day how he was feeling. And then I would want to jump in and be like, try practicing gratitude, read this book, think of it differently, blah, blah, blah. And we really had to have a conscious conversation and be like, if we want to have a healthy friendship or even a healthy romantic relationship at any point, you need to learn to do that on your own. So it's interesting to see where having someone that you're lock sync with, whether it's romantic or friendship, is almost a scapegoat for you dealing with your own stuff.
100%. And I bet if people look, okay, go back to that list of the 5 to 10 people, what is the role that you play with them? Are you playing the fixer? Are you playing the person that like they come and take care of you? Are you the one that always calls them and they're never calling you, vice versa? Does it feel balanced? Do you feel like you're supporting each other in the same amount of ways and in the different ways that you need? Or does it feel one-sided? Really take inventory of that. And if that is an alignment for you, I think so many times we fall into these sort of codependency patterns of anxious, avoidant, or the person who's going to be the one who's, I'll take care of everything. I like to be the leader, like I'll do this, blah, 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 blah. And the other person doesn't plan anything, doesn't have any opinions. Does that feel good? And can you create a space to have conversations around it? And here's a tip from TBM coach Heather Whitaker.
Hi, TBM community. This is Coach Heather here to talk about some tips around friendship. One thing that I've noticed with a lot of my clients who maybe have some codependency or have been identified as the fixer, that they're finding that when they start to do the TBM work, that they're so self-aware of themselves that they can start to notice so much more about different things in friendships, whether that's testing them or triggering them. And so they want to start to be the fixer. It's like the underlying side of like codependency of, well, because I can see this, I should point it out. And I know how to fix it, so I'm going to tell them what to do. And you're finding that maybe there's a little bit of frustration or some, off-putting from friends because now you are quote unquote holier than thou because you're doing the work and you're so self-aware. What I really want to say is just because you can see things in other people doesn't mean that it's your job to fix it. Doesn't mean that it's your job to be the one to have to teach them, to have to change it for them. I hear a lot that people feel like people are constantly calling them just to lean on them in a way that's maybe crossing some boundaries. So what I want to say is it's really important that setting boundaries with friends who don't have quite the same practice as you is absolutely okay. You can be the expander in the sense of just showing your growth versus having to always explain it. I mean, unless it's something that you enjoy. But I think that setting boundaries is going to be really important. So whether that's physical, meaning removing yourself from a situation, verbal, out loud saying, that you either don't have the capacity to be able to help or that this isn't something you quite feel comfortable with. And then lastly, energetic, of just knowing that it's okay to say no. It's okay to remove yourself. That doesn't make you a bad person. That's where the energetic side comes in. This doesn't mean that just because you don't want to help somebody else is any negativity towards you. Is that you have to put yourself first. Some tips to how to turn somebody down is basically, just saying that you don't feel quite comfortable in telling somebody how to deal with the problem that you haven't personally experienced. Or maybe that, you're doing so much work on your own that to add this additional emotional heavy weight would just be too much for you. Or you can offer them pathway information or any of the resources that you've picked up, but it doesn't mean that you have to be the one to do it.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
We talk all day long about having clear, conscious communication in relationships and clear, conscious communication with family and boundaries at work. But do we even know how to have these conversations with our friends? Is that in the norm? I feel like growing up, it was like you were either fighting with your friends or you were good. But as you get older, you're like, okay, we don't fight about the petty stuff anymore. So if I'm mad about something, I'll just stuff it down and we'll move past it because it wasn't a big deal and I know we're good friends. But do people need to be having those conversations and call out the roles that they're playing with each other?
I mean, this is such a good one because if you're listening to this podcast, if you're anything like us, all we do is talk about how to communicate consciously or how we want to only interact with conscious people, or we listen to all the podcast episodes on how to do this. And then when the rubber meets the road, it's like everything goes out the window. Like we don't know what to do. We don't know how to say. We just decide to ignore the person, or we come on way too strong, or, the other person doesn't know how to meet what you're saying, or you end up blaming someone instead of taking accountability. It's just so layered and complicated. And I've found, and this is more of a new practice for me, the relationships that I have had conversations with when something is off, even if it's so uncomfortable. I have one relationship in particular where, we were friends and then we started working together in a trade capacity, and then resentment built on each side. Both of us felt like the trade wasn't even. And then we both built up sort of all this anger and resentment towards each other because of work, but that started showing up in our friendship. And eventually we had a conversation about it, and the conversation was horrible. And I thought the friendship was totally over. And we took a couple of months, both of us ended up reflecting on it, coming back around. We were able to have a really honest, vulnerable conversation and cry and say, you made me feel this way and this made me feel that way. And it was never really about the work. And now that friend and I have continued to have a really healthy relationship, and we've had conversations that are hard and conversations that are good ever since. But the positive thing out of that whole experience was there's no underground resentment between us, because we've continually had these hard conversations, and it's been worth it. And only in the past year have I been able to do this with people. And there's still people that I'm not able to do it with, but when both parties are willing to participate in that dynamic where it's growing, that's sort of an indication that that's a healthy friendship. Because maybe you're willing to step up and have your conscious half of the conversation, but they're not willing to have it back, then that's also an indication that it's not a very healthy friendship. And I have another example that's, really fresh of a friendship where we got in a big fight, and it was something that was kind of my fault. And the other person, was coming at it with their own fears and anxieties. And I thought the friendship was completely over. And then the friend has resurfaced in my life, and I'm really wanting to have a conscious conversation about it. And the friend is more avoidant about being able to say anything. And so we're sort of in this stance of is this going to be able to move forward? If not, but ultimately you have to be feeling so self-assured on your own that you can say I feel worthy and complete with or without this friendship. And it's just information, if I can learn to communicate with this person, then this friendship can continue to grow. If not, no bad blood, nothing I did wrong, nothing they did wrong. But, it sort of shows if that's somebody who's going to be able to continue evolving with you or not.
Yeah. And I caught a quick clip of Jay Shetty on Call Her Daddy. And he was saying when in a romantic relationship, if two people don't work out, it's not that your worth is any less than that person. It's just that you guys just don't match. And I think the same principle is true for friendships. If it doesn't match, it doesn't mean one person's better, one person's worse. It's just whatever level you guys are at that time, it just doesn't mesh. And that's okay. And you don't have to have, ego dance around friendships that just aren't working.
This one is, I feel very case by case and relationship by relationship. So if there's sort of just a natural parting between friends, you realize, oh, we're not really reaching out to each other that much anymore. They're asking me to do things that I don't really want to do, and I keep saying no, but neither friend is very persistent. And that's something that can just simmer out. I don't think we need to force these conscious conversations when things are just naturally going in different directions. We can let that do its thing. We have enough to deal with otherwise. But there's also dynamics where one friend is the real boundary crosser, very persistent. And maybe it's, let's use the archetype of the party friend, and you don't want to party anymore. And every week they're do you want to go out? Come on, please come out. You're so lame. You don't want to do stuff with me anymore. And they almost guilt you into, not wanting to spend time with them. That would be a case where it's worth it. And maybe easier in that scenario to say something like, hey, I love you and I've had so much fun with you, but these activities don't align with me anymore. And like you said, Jessica, I'd love to spend time with you, on a weekday for lunch or go on a walk. See if you can sort of recontextualize the friendship. And maybe that friend doesn't want to do those things. They just want to keep partying, and that's their prerogative. But at least you could state your needs and get that friend off your back instead of just feeling bad, that you keep being no, 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 no. And then there's the friendships where something quote unquote toxic has happened. a lot of resentment has built within both of you and nobody knows what to say, but there's like an energetic elephant in the room. I've had that one happen to me so many times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't really know, what the tipping point was here, but it feels uncomfortable. And do we have a conversation or not? And again, that one's sort of case by case. I've had relationships where we don't say anything and the friendship completely disappears, but you're left with this guilt and resentment and weirdness between the friend, and you don't really know how to interact with them anymore, even in a casual way. And then I find myself in those scenarios then like bullshitting, trying to say happy birthday or like trying to do something to prove I was a good friend. I still do care from you because I feel uncomfortable and I'm afraid that maybe they hate me or did I do something wrong, And those are really interesting dynamics to look at. What about in your experience?
Yeah, I think the same thing as many times as I can. And this is, again, like a new thing that I've been taking on. But as many times as I can, if I feel like there is something left unaligned, unsaid, like if there is that resentment building on both sides, I want to do at least my part to communicate, hey, I'm going to pull back because that doesn't work for me, or it felt like this when this behavior happened, or whatever it is, even though it's scary and even though it's hard, because it feels like I'm leaving opportunities for growth on the table if I don't. As those come up, I'm trying to have those more and more and more. Jordan Younger, the Balanced Blonde, had a podcast on this. She had an episode about how to break up with your friends with this expert on. And they were talking about how if you're hitting up your friend all the time and they're not answering, they're canceling, that's not a friendship. You're in like a toxic dynamic that you're like trying to get their attention. If that was a dating dynamic, you'd cut them off and say, no, red flag, they're not answering, they're not interested, boom, goodbye. So it's like, why do we feel the need to continue on where we're not being met with what we want in a friendship dynamic?
And that's really one of those things where if we all did our own work, that could stop happening, right? So I feel like it starts with us and everybody listening, taking stock of your life and saying, do I participate in dynamics like that? And can I do the work within myself so that I stop hitting people up that aren't hitting me back? Because I need validation, because I really want to be in this friend group, because this resembles some dynamic from middle school. This is sort of the, if we were all kinder, the world would be a better place kind of example. And just like a kind of random aside tip, I had a lot of kind of open-ended correspondence with people before the new year, and I didn't really want to talk to them or anyone. Like I had people being like, do you want to do this project? Do you want to hang out? Should we do this? Should we do that? And they were all people I didn't really know or have relationships with, and I didn't feel like I had the bandwidth for anything new. Not that I didn't like those people, or maybe in a few years it wouldn't end up being a friendship, but I didn't have room to cultivate anything new. And so I came up with this message like, hey, I'm taking some alone time to reevaluate, what do I want for next year? What kind of projects do I want to take on? Like, I'm really looking for clarity and I need to have a little bit more peace in my life. I'll hit you up next year. And that really like allowed me to take my power back. And those people stopped messaging me. And if it's ever right, the ball's in my court to say, hey, let's reconnect this year, or let's grab dinner or whatever. But that was sort of an easy way for me not to say, hey, I'm not interested in talking to you, or I definitely don't feel like doing this, or this isn't aligned with me right now. And instead, I put the emphasis on myself and my needs that had nothing to do with them. And that sort of gave me a good out of all new conversations to like reset and even figure out, what do I want?
That's definitely a huge one for me, because I'm recognizing where I do have spaces for certain friendships, but I'm still also trying to make space for me. I'm someone who leans into the workaholism and leans into burnout and leans into running myself ragged. So I need to make sure my needs are protected. Like I am having good enough alone time and restorative time. So getting hit up by a million friends or thinking of cultivating a new friendship, you're like, I don't even have time for me yet. Let me grab that time and then I can schedule you in, or then I can think about developing a deeper friendship. That's something so important to think about.
And that begs the question, how many close relationships do we even have time for? Let's say we have time for 5, and we can really give those 5 people our all. We could pick them up from jail. We could talk to them on the phone if they were really going through something. They would bring us soup if we weren't feeling well. And we both have a vested interest in hearing about each other's lives. To have 5 of those is a lot of time on top of yourself. And let's say you also have a family. I mean, I'm even factoring my family members into there, like my mom and my sister and my brother. And then what do I have time for? Like one best friend, a romantic relationship. If I'm really giving my all to different relationships in my life, then you have to be realistic. Like you don't have time for 10 friends. You don't have time to be a good friend to 10 friends. And then, there's the question of like, do I have 10 let's grab a drink friends, that aren't really people that you invest your life into? Feels like those ones you could almost sort of start to relegate in your mind in terms of like, what's my hierarchy? Like in the least mean way, it's just like,
Right.
What energy can I afford to give? Like, I know I can afford to give energy to my partner, 2 best friends, my sister and my mom. And then there's these other friends, but I sort of know I'm never going to be able to show up for them in the way that they deserve if we're going to have a close friendship, but I'm happy to grab a drink with them once a month. So how do you just sort of like rearrange your thinking around it and give those friendships the effort that you can, rather than overgiving or spreading yourself too thin or not giving at all because you're afraid that it won't work out?
Yeah, that's such a good point, because I really think to have good friendships, you have to be able to be a good friend and receive good friendship back. It's this symbiotic relationship. But especially as we get older and at different phases of our life, that's going to require a lot more hours. You think about people who have kids, have really, really busy jobs. There's so many things going on. Thinking of adding in a new friendship, the amount of hours it would take to feel safe enough to be at the level where you can bring each other soup takes time. Think about, who do you want to invest in? What feels right to invest in them? And you don't have to make all those decisions right away with a new friend. Take it slow as you start to meet people, really be mindful of your time and energy and what you have the bandwidth for, and be ferocious about stopping the train when it doesn't feel aligned. Don't overgive. Don't people please. Don't say yes when it's really a no. Allow space for the aligned friendships to come in instead of, okay, fine, I'll do this because I feel like I have to, or we've known each other for years and I have to do this. Does it really feel good? Does it light you up? Are you willing to put in the work to be a good friend? And if not, just move on with grace.
Yeah. And, that begs the question of intention. Like, if I'm bringing them the soup, but I really don't feel like it, if the love isn't behind it, should you even really be doing it? And I think, we all need to sort of run that philosophy through our lives of like, what are we doing because we feel like we have to do it, when if we said no, maybe they could have a more loving friend, come and support them. But like they're leaning on us when we really don't want to be there for them. Mark Groves said something about when he ended one of his relationships, the question he asked himself was, can someone else love them better? And we can apply that to all of our relationships. And the other thing, Jessica, I wanted to ping pong to you is, we should talk about friend groups, because there's all this FOMO and pressure, and also this like TV sensationalized sense of I should have a friend group, whether it's like my girl group I go on vacation with, or it's like the cool group I go out with. Especially living in like major cities, like there's all these groups that are connected to different organizations like Burning Man or Coachella or different wellness events, or you see on Instagram all these people in the same industry look like they're all hanging out and having fun, or all these influencers have a friend group. And I don't have a friend group. And I've certainly been plugged in and out of friend groups throughout my life. But the dynamics there are so interesting, because it leaves you feeling like, if I'm not invited, do all these people not like me? Are they all talking about me behind my back? Did I not make the cut, or do I not really care? And I remember growing up, I was very like a lunch table hopper kind of person. Like I went to one of those high schools where it was like the cool kids sit here and the athletes sit here. And I never really had a group. I remember I would like flip flop between tables, and I sort of took a stand that like that was my vibe. I'm not in one particular group, but it did leave me thinking like, what did these different groups think about me? And then it leaves you with a lot of FOMO. Why aren't I invited to that vacation? Or I guess I'm not in their Burning Man camp or whatever it is. So what's your relationship been like?
Oof, yeah. This is such an interesting one. And I definitely identify with that. And I think when I look back, especially high school friendships, I was for sure a friendship group hopper. Like I had a core group, and then I'd sort of be like, okay, I'm going to be best friends with these people now. And then I've established myself in that group. And then, as those people, because a lot of times they'd be older grades than I was when they'd leave for college, I'd be like, cool, I have to find a new friend group and all of those things. And I think if I really look, one is just exploration, meeting different kinds of people, being interested by different kinds of people, different friend groups, connecting with you at a certain time. But I think in part, I was really looking for security. I need to find the next friend group so I don't get left behind by the one that I'm in. And it was really from a place of insecurity, needing to go into all those places.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely rings true in my experience. And as somebody that's like joined a new friend group, and then it's like, who is she? Who brought her in? I guess she's close friends with so-and-so, then I become somebody else's friend in the group, and then somebody's jealous or upset. And now I even have this sort of trauma of every time I find myself in a scenario in a new friend group, I feel this anxiety. I'm going to get kicked out of the group. They don't like me. All this inner child stuff comes up, like so much so that I feel like I pretty much actively avoid those situations. I do not want to go on the group trip to Cabo. I don't want to go to the music festival with the group. I don't want to be stuck in the group dynamic for a holiday. I've had so many of those scenarios pop up in my life that now I think I have a lot of healing to do around those particular dynamics. But I think you're right that it's ultimately not about the friend group, and it's not about having a friend group. It's about what's coming up for you in different dynamics of people, and then realizing like the depth here is really in the one-on-one connections. It's not necessarily in, we're all in the Instagram photo together, so that means something. Whatever your friendship style is, that is great. If you're a one-on-one person, do not pressure yourself to have a group friendship. If you truly are a group friendship person and you're not so close with anyone in particular, that's also fine. Maybe you have a really tight relationship with yourself or your family, and you're just so happy to be able to go out with a group of friends and touch in that way. So I think it's like no shame in your friendship style. Stop comparing it to other people's. Like you're not left out of some dynamic. You're having the experiences you're meant to have. And then, it all comes back to you. It actually has nothing to do with the friend. It has nothing to do with the friend, the best friend, the friend group. It only has to do with what you need to learn about yourself. And, we could look at all these friends as mirrors. How are we showing up? And then how is that showing up in our friendship as an opportunity to heal from something that's ready to let go or ready to be integrated or ready to help us learn something? And I think, that's the overall takeaway of manifestation. It never ends up being about the thing or the friend or the relationship. It always ends up being about the lesson. And that's really the gift of it all.
And here's a tip from TBM coach Amanda Blair.
Hello, TBM community. Amanda Blair here, one of the TBM coaches. I wanted to share a way that you can think about categorizing the type of friendships you have. This categorization helps you understand the kind of friendships that are working for you and the kind that aren't really working and how to navigate those. So there is an A group, B group, C group, D group for all our relationships. An A group is going to tend to be a partner, although sometimes we can put a best friend in that A group. B group is best friend, so ride or die person you can call in the middle of the night that's going to take you to the hospital. C group, close friends. That is going to be people that you will share intimate details of your life with, but that you wouldn't necessarily call in the middle of the night to take you to the hospital unless your best friend wasn't available. D group, acquaintances, people that you would invite to a party, people that you can have a great time with, but you can't rely on super heavily. You're not going to tell them the very vulnerable, intimate details of everything going on for you. So why it's important to understand these categories is people can sort of move throughout these in different phases of our life. And when we're thinking about our friendships and when they shift, it's not always just, do I need to cut this person out or not? Or do I need to keep trying to fit this person into the same category? Do I need to look at the friendship and the way they've been showing up? Perhaps that person was a best friend, but now they're showing up as more of a good friend or even an acquaintance. And the reason this is important is it helps you determine the amount of energy and what kind of energy and what you're giving to that friendship, and will help it feel more reciprocal. So if you have a friend who is very avoidant and you are trying to communicate with them about maybe the distance that's been between you two and trying to correct it, and you consider that person a good friend or even a best friend, and they aren't available for that kind of conversation and they don't want to hear it, they give you nothing if you talk about it, they say everything's fine, but you love that person, you don't have to necessarily have a breakup with them. You can just say, okay, this person is showing up as more of an acquaintance and I can love them there and I can enjoy them in that way, and I don't have this expectation of them needing to be different. So there is many shades of this, but something to think about as you look at your friendships and determine what works for you, where you're putting your energy, where you need to be putting your energy. I also think it's good to look at, do I have a ton of acquaintances, but not a lot of good friends? Do I have someone I would consider a best friend? And you can kind of see where there's holes missing in those friendship groups and what feels really satisfying for you. And if it feels good to have a best friend and, 2 or 3 really good friends and then a handful of acquaintances, but you're missing those 2 to 3 good friends, then you can really focus on calling that in so that you can feel more fulfilled in your friendships and you can get that intimacy you are seeking from those multiple relationships, which is something that is really important. We don't just seek emotional intimacy in romantic partnership, we seek that also in our friendships. That is my tip. Again, there's many different situations to think about and many different layers to this, but this is just sort of a great general overview to think about. And if you would like to dive deeper on any of this or friendship breakups in particular, I would love to help you in a session, and you can find me on our TBM coaching page. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your episode.
Who are some friend expanders you have or dynamics of friendships that you see that you're like, okay, from my perception of what I see about their friendship, that's something that looks good to me? Because we got a lot of questions in that family didn't model good friendships. They don't have examples of what a healthy, aligned, close-knit friendship would even look like, and they feel really blocked. And the one thing I always say is like, go find expanders who have it so you can literally see like, oh, wow, how they showed up for them is real friendship. I see it's possible. So who do you look to when you think of those close friendships?
Man, I have none. I have nothing that comes to mind. So if anybody has one.
I actually have the most expansion around some of the friends that I have long-term friendships with that I don't see very regularly. And they'll show up for me in random, small or big ways where I'm just like, oh my God, I feel so loved or seen by you. And it inspires me to want to do that more in my friendships. I mean, I think this is one of the hardest things that I've definitely struggled with is so many of my friends who don't live anywhere near me or on the other side of the country have had babies this past year or their second baby this past year. And because I'm not at that phase of my life, it's so hard for me to really identify what their needs are besides just sending them diapers, or like nipple butter, or I don't know, like I don't even know what they need or what they're wanting from that moment. And they're so busy and the time distance is so different that I haven't quite figured out how to show up for them in this new phase of their life yet. And that's something I need to like navigate and simmer on and figure out how to do that better because I really value those friendships. But even those women, one of them saw when we launched the app, she sent me a hat with manifestation on it. It was like, just know that even though we don't talk all the time, we're thinking of you, we love you, we support you, we're rooting you on. Like those small little things, just, I don't know, it brought tears to my eyes because I was like, oh my gosh, we really do have this friendship, even though it's got so much distance between it.
Yeah, that is such a good point. And when I gave my answer, I really wasn't thinking about the friendship expanders in my own life. I was more thinking about like people I don't know as expanders. And I've definitely had that experience of people that know me and love and admire me that I'm not necessarily thinking about on a regular basis, but they show up. They say something thoughtful to you. You have one phone call a year and it's like you've never fallen out of touch. And those have been, my most favorite connections. And, it begs you to ask the question of like, how are we defining friendship? Because if friendship really comes down to support, then do you need to be supported every single day? Maybe you have a partner or family or one friend for that, but it's these little nuggets of support you get throughout the year, like your example, or like I have a best friend from summer camp and she has babies now, and we can never talk, but we voice note like once every 3 months. And when we do, it's like we both cry and we're both like, I'm so proud of you. And I'm so glad that we're both thinking the same way and in each other's lives. But I don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, what's Georgia May doing today? Because she's having a completely different version of life than me. So I love that of like finding those friendship expanders in your own life and even, asking yourself, do I have to have a really tight knit everyday friendship with someone to call it a friendship? Or can it be something that's coming in and out of my life when I need it?
What advice would you have for someone? This is a big question we got a lot. It's really the transitional phases. It's you were in a relationship and you had an established friend group and now you're either divorced or not in that relationship anymore and you're kind of having to cultivate new ones. Perhaps you're recently retired and a lot of your friends were through your work and now you're not associating with work anymore. And now you're finding relationships at this new age or phase in your life. People that just recently had kids, maybe their friends don't have kids, and how do they find people that can relate to their experience as a mother, as a new mother, for those transitional phases in people's lives, or even post-college. I think it's a huge one with friendship. What advice or thoughts do you have on that one?
I mean, my first gut reaction is like, don't grieve all your old friendships. We have this tendency to be like, I was in this relationship and I ignored all my old friends and now they're not my friends anymore because I was just friends with my partner's friends and I'm a bad person and I should have kept in touch with them and it's on me. And then we try and circle back to those people and be like, hey, I'm here again. And maybe, those people aren't meant to be in your life anymore and that's why they weren't. We got caught up in the self-blame game of thinking like, I could have done better. I could have made more of an effort. And then we try and have these people pleaser relationships with these people we feel like we neglected when really maybe they were sort of naturally removed out of our lives because we're ready for a next phase. And I think that sort of applies to everything you said. The retired person, the person graduating college. We have this tendency when we feel alone to be like, okay, who could I call or get in touch with? Who do I remember being close with? Like, can I kick up something with them? And it's not based on an authentic, real-time connection that represents where you are right now. In terms of that turning into a tip, it's like, how are you taking up space where new friendships could come through, even if it feels uncomfortable to be alone right now, because you're sort of like dog paddling at old friendships that have expired for now. Doesn't mean they're not going to come back around or there couldn't be a more natural connection. But there's plenty of times where like I've fallen out of touch with friends for one example or another. And then one friend that I'm not expecting pops back into my life years later because they love manifestation or we have something in common now, And so I think meet yourself where you're at and let friends come in who align with that.
Also, for anyone in those transitional phases, you can make friends at any time, at any age, at any stage. You haven't missed the opportunity to connect with new people. There are so many ways to connect with people. It feels scary and it feels overwhelming, especially when you're starting a fresh new relationship with someone. You're like, oh my gosh, all of your shadows, insecurities, all that stuff comes up in these new friendships the same way it would in a new romantic relationship. So examining what aligned action, doing that DI is so helpful when figuring out where and when to meet and connect with these people, because you'll get clarity. I think just put yourself in places and situations that you love, that really align with you. And then your people that are supposed to connect with you at this phase of life will find you.
Another thing I'll say is, as somebody who cycled through a lot of different friendship phases, it's actually the best to make new friends now because they can meet you exactly where you are. There's no sense of like them meeting the 16-year-old version of you that you've outgrown, or them expecting you to do things that you would have done 10 years ago. And so it's allowed me to show up like as my highest version of self, as my most authentic, to really choose what version of myself am I going to bring to the table here, and to talk about the subjects that I'm interested in, and, to focus on not gossiping or, creating conversations that are more around ideas than other people are complaining. And so there is this cool aspect of like, you don't have to bring all your shit to the table and pour it on a new friend. They don't even need to see everything that's under the hood. Like if naturally those things come up because it's in conversation, or you deepen into a relationship where each other's stuff flares up, that's one thing. But you also don't need to dump all of your traumas and your insecurities on someone to be close to them. You can actually just be a light in their life, and vice versa. You can show up and curate and lead the conversations you like to have. So I think we also need to get out of this, like, in order to be close to someone, they've got to see my ugliest. You can have this elevated friendship that's healthy because there's boundaries around that as well. And that doesn't mean you're hiding.
Yes, that is such a good point. And I think, one place that's important to touch on before we close here is also the fact that part of an element of having a really fulfilling life is being in community with people, whether that's romantic relationships, family, friends. We are social beings. Even if you're introverted, it's still important to be seen and heard and connected to people. That's one thing that I think a lot of us recognize being in isolation over the pandemic, like the importance of community, the importance of being connected with other people. And just know that you deserve to have those relationships, those friendships at any age, at any stage. You can cultivate having those blissful, joyful moments and enjoying life together, watching a sunset together, like the simple pleasures of life. You can have those moments regardless of what your blueprint was, regardless of what your programming was, or how you showed up in relationships before. You can rewire and move through those blocks and heal that inner child and unblock your whole high school experience if you need to, and start cultivating those aligned friendships now. It is so possible. There's so many people out there, and you'll definitely find many people that will connect with you in your heart space.
Right. And, that's what's so magical about the TBM community group, which is a part of the pathway, or you can even like get a taste of in our comments on Instagram or at our events. It's all people that are interested in living life a certain way with a certain philosophy, a sense of like, let's take ownership of who we are and where we're coming from, and let's create a better life together. And a lot of single people who don't have friends, or, people that are looking to connect with like-minded community, do find that within TBM, which is a huge driver of what we do. So like, get in the community group and say where you live and what your name is, why you're looking to connect with people, what you're interested in, what you're going through. Because I think, a lot of people have found a magnetic, more aligned friendship there. And, if we can all keep working to grow that together, like, we're creating a nice little friendship engine where we're all interested in the same things.
That's such a good point. And that was every time we do any magnetic meetup or in-person event, that becomes so apparent to me of like how incredible everyone in the community is, and just how they're out there just supporting each other. And that's so beautiful. But it was so apparent when I went to my winter getaway in Jackson Hole, and I met the girls in Jackson Hole that do the TBM work, and just seeing how they speak to each other, how they'll send each other voice notes. They'll be like, oh my God, this and this came up. Do you think it's a test? Like having that support system for each other that wasn't based off of judgment or shame or programming. It was pure-hearted love and support. It was so beautiful to see. Shout out to all you guys. And it was just really nice. One of the girls even, I think was in the San Francisco area before and then moved to Jackson Hole. And I remember she mentioned something about how she was nervous, like, oh no, is this new group of TBMers going to like me? And they were so welcoming and so loving, and they hit it off right away. And I think it's, remember your worth. Remember your worth when you're going into meeting new people, into these friendships, and be the friend that you want to receive back, and that's where you're going to find that really loving, integrated support.
Just a quick thought I had there around age. We all have this sense that like our friends need to be our age or going through what we're going through. And when I think of like some of the best conversations and group settings I've been in, they're usually with women that are like 20 years older than me. And I found myself at a lot of retreats, and I'm someone that's just like randomly go to a retreat in Ireland and it's all older women and I'm the youngest person there and I have the best conversations with them. I really feel like I bring something to the group. I'm making them laugh because of my stories. They're sharing their wisdom with me. Friendship can come intergenerationally and in many different settings. It doesn't have to be this like replication of our high school experience. And when I've been having this conversation, I've been thinking about friends that are more like my peers, but I've had the most magical connections and conversations like at my grandma's nursing home when she was around, like on these retreats with random people, through meeting someone through work who introduces me to somebody. I think, definitely open your heart up to what friendship can look like, and don't just be staring at our peers thinking, oh my gosh, I hope you like me. Because like that's just another version of all of our trauma from growing up.
100%. And what's funny is, so Daniel and I have been calling a couple friends that we can connect to that live in Los Angeles or that are in Los Angeles. And we went out to dinner with his best friend from college parents that were in town visiting. And after we left the dinner, we had such a good time. And we're like, that was exactly our aligned couple friends. The way that we were able to hang out with them, see eye to eye, like have these conversations, learn about their life and their upbringing, and them learn about us and, the differences from different age gaps and challenges at different points in our lives. I was like, that was the energy of the aligned couple friends. And we're at completely different stages in our life and still had such a great time and connection. So just to expand you, it can be all different age ranges to connect with. Well, thank you, Grace, so much. This has been very expansive, and I hope this gets you guys thinking about your friendships and taking inventory. And just as a little protocol to anyone out there, take that inventory of who's in your life right now. How do you spend your time around them? Does that align with your authentic code? Does it align with your values? Do you feel emotionally safe around them? Do you feel like you can be yourself around them? And then from there, really figure out what's not in alignment. And take a peek. What did you witness around modeling in your friendships, from your parents' friendships to then your peers? Like, what was a role you played in that growing up? And then you can craft your list and think about, what do I actually want out of a friendship? How much bandwidth do I have to give a friendship? How much time am I willing to spend and commit to this friendship? And how do I want to feel around them? What do I want to do with them? What would it feel like to have that friendship in my life? How would it shift my life in any way? And you can always go into, we have Unblock Boundaries, which touches on this inventory a bit. We have the Expander section and How to Manifest, which touches on this as well. And really explore these things and figure out what kind of friendships you can cultivate over the next year.
Yeah, and those are such great tips. And all that being said, take the pressure off of it. Keep working on yourself and watch what shows up in your experience. Don't make this another, I need to manifest a house and a job and a friend now, If you focus on your stuff, you're going to find yourself naturally aligning with those people. If you're spending your time the way you want to, if you're connecting with the jobs that you want to, if you're going on walks when you feel called to, if you're following your pings to go to the grocery store or to the flea market, like that's where you're going to find these friends. Definitely take the inventory, definitely utilize the tools, but also like let it go and see what comes back.
Great note. Well, thank you, Grace. This has been so fun, and we hope to connect with you guys soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ+ community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.